So Pep Guardiola may have just hailed Napoli as one of the best sides he's ever faced. Yep, let's just ignore Real Madrid and Barcelona, shall we? But let's take a look at City's first ever Champions League night. It was a 1-1 draw against the same opponents in September 2011 and see where that City 11 is now. Joe Hart. How has Joe Hart's career come to this? It seemed like only yesterday he was winning titles at Man City and was England's undisputed number one. Now West Ham fans are unimpressed with him, crying out for the return of Adrian, while Jack Butland is ready to shove him out of Gareth Southgate's starting 11. Having been at the Etihad since 2006, it looked as though Hart would see out his days in Manchester until Pep Guardiola arrived and sentenced him to loan spells at Torino and the Hammers. Pablo Zabaleta. Like Hart, Pablo Zabaleta was another player who'd been at Man City since they were poor, only to end up at West Ham this summer. Sheikh Mansour gave the club the financial makeover 24 hours after the Argentine signed in 2008, so the former Espanyol defender could hardly be blamed for thinking he'd be on his way again in the next transfer window. But no, he played almost 350 games for the club, winning 2 league titles, and now has the honour of playing in the backline of James Collins and Vincent Reid. Joleon Lescott. Joleon Lescott may be seen as a walking punchline in modern day football after failing at his last 3 clubs and sending dodgy tweets from his pocket apparently. But there was a time when he was actually a half decent defender, and the only laughable thing about him was the shape of his head. He lasted 5 years at City, making 160 appearances and helping himself to 2 league winners' medals. And then he took in a season at West Brom before realising a dream of signing for boyhood club Aston Villa. I'm guessing those dreams didn't involve finishing bottom of the league and getting ripped apart every week. At the age of 35, he's currently unemployed and probably sitting at home watching the Hollyoaks omnibus waiting for the phone to ring. Lad, if you're waiting for that, you'll be waiting until you're dead. Vincent Kompany. If Vincent Kompany doesn't spend the last 20 years of his life in a wheelchair, he'll be a lucky man. Arguably the club's finest defender of all time, the Belgian was signed back in 2008. You know, back when their hopes rested on a sulky Robinho, a slow Sean Wright-Phillips and an erratic Stephen Ireland. The Belgian, who's captained the club to 2 titles, has been stricken by injuries in recent years, playing just 28 league games since the 14-15 season. Aleksandr Kolarov. Aleksandr Kolarov scored the club's first ever Champions League goal, saving them a point with a late free kick before being immediately replaced by Gabriel because, you know, replacing your left back with another one is a match-winning substitution. Despite looking like a man who's never cracked a smile a day in his life, says a barrel of laughs down the pub, the Serbian was a great servant for the club in his 7 seasons at Manchester before finally leaving for Roma this summer. About time, he's been wanting to leave for the last 5 years. Samir Nasri. It seems like about 10 years ago that Samir Nasri was involved in the Man City team, but Pep Guardiola finally got rid of the surly Frenchman this summer, flogging him to Turkish side Antalyaspor, where he's linked up with Samuel Eto'o and Jeremy Menez. Nasri arrived in Manchester in 2011, swapping the Emirates for the Etihad, as was the style at the time, but the 25 million man was a so-so signing. He scored 26 goals and 171 appearances for the club, and Guardiola was clearly unimpressed by his fondness for the fridge, sentencing the chubster to a loan spell at Sevilla before finally cutting him loose for good. Oh, and after being omitted from the last World Cup squad, Nasri retired from international duty at the age of 27. Next Zidane? I don't think so. Gareth Barry. One man who's had more impact on the Premier League than Nasri is Gareth Barry. Eyebrows were raised when he signed for Man City in 2009 for a couple of reasons. One, for a club with all the financial resources in the world to sign a player as steady yet unfashionable as Barry seemed far too sensible for a team who were also chucking 18 million at Roque Santa Cruz. And 2, after pleading with Aston Villa to let him leave for Liverpool in search of Champions League football the previous summer, he was now leaving for City, who were in the Europa League, the same competition as Villa. Barry is a freak of longevity. The former England international is the current appearance record holder in Premier League history with 634. Since leaving City, he spent 5 seasons at Everton and is now in his first at West Brom, and is going to turn 37 in February. Yaya Toure. Whatever you do not forget Yaya Toure's birthday. He may be a 34-year-old man with a wife and kids, but if the football club who already pay him 200 grand a week can't even be bothered to buy him a birthday cake from Asda, you bet he'll be demanding to leave the country. Aside from his petulance, Toure is a club legend, having been flogged to City by Pep Guardiola in 2010 for £24 million. He scored 82 goals in 301 games for the club, has embarrassed us all that we once thought Colo was the good brother, and has also lifted the African Cup of Nations with Ivory Coast. David Silva. David Silva may have just taken a razor to his head hoping to emulate the Bruce Willis look. He looks more like a confused thumb, but what a player he has been for Manchester City. Arguably one of the best the Premier League has ever seen, the Spanish magician has been integral to the club's success ever since arriving from Valencia 7 years ago. At the age of 31, he's playing as well as ever, although I wonder what he makes of Ginger Lad screaming in his face. Edin Dzeko. Noel Gallagher once described Edin Dzeko as rubbish at football but brilliant at goal scoring. It's true that the Bosnian was capable of missing an open goal from 2 yards out, but at the same time, can you really argue with 72 goals in 189 games for the club, many of which came from the bench? He left for Roma in 2015 and looked to be winding down the clock, with 8 league goals from 31 appearances in his debut season, but since then he must have started tucking into his morning Weetabix or something, because he smashed 39 goals in 51 appearances last season and currently is 8 in 9 so far this campaign. At the age of 31, a return to the Premier League imminent? I know a couple of clubs who could do with him. Sergio Aguero. This was only Sergio Aguero's 5th game for Manchester City since arriving from Atletico Madrid, but the 23-year-old already had 6 goals to his name. He's carried on in the same vein, establishing himself as one of the Premier League's deadliest ever hitmen, never reflected in the Team of the Year awards though, with 176 goals in 261 games, and is too shy of becoming the club's all-time record goal scorer. But his defining moment in the blue shirt? Just ask Martin Tyler and the millions of United fans that cried into their pillows that night. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.